The story I have for you today is incredibly interesting. I have a gentleman that has done more to remove people from the Democrat Party than just about anyone else. He was also targeted by the FBI and the DOJ for being near the Capitol on January 6th. And we're going to talk about how they absolutely coordinated to ruin his life. Brandon Straka, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, just a little bit of a background. Brandon is the founder of the Walkaway movement, focused on helping Democrats see the need to walk away from the Democrat Party. He's been incredibly influential. He runs a large charitable organization and just a massive education movement. What else am I missing that I can tell people about you?
Former hairstylist.
Former hairstylist. Okay, well that's why you have such great hair.
No,
So
no, that's a joke for your audience. I was throwing that in as a joke because oftentimes when the left reports about me, one of the ways that they'll find to kind of marginalize me or kind of demean the work that I do is by not acknowledging at all that I run a movement, that I run an organization that we've done very well for 5 years. They say Brandon Straka, former hairstylist. So I was just making a joke.
yeah. All right, now you were one of the most influential people arrested for the January 6th Capitol situation, only to have your whole case turned on its head when they couldn't nail you as the bad guy, as the poster boy. And they did everything they could to portray you as evil and anti-government. The media even tried to link a bridge in some of the articles between you, Donald Trump, and evil white supremacy groups that tried to overthrow the government. I could go on, but basically, they turned you into a legendary story, but a false one. Can you tell my viewers a little bit about what happened with January 6th, the truth, and what the
Yep.
government was trying to do to you?
Sure. And you're absolutely right. And I appreciate you saying that because it's so far beyond hyperbole, and it, it, it defies belief what the media and the government has done to try to take really the 8 minutes that I was standing outside of the Capitol. I have been compared to Ray Epps. The government even used me in Ray Epps's sentencing documents and charging documents, through to lawsuits and a number of other things. But so essentially, what happened was, for 2.5 years leading up to January 6th, I was traveling the country, as you were saying, doing walkaway events, walkaway initiative, marches, rallies, town halls, etc. And that's sort of how I built up my presence and my name in the world of politics. So by the time we had gotten to the 2020 election, I kind of jumped in as a political influencer, and I traveled to swing states like Michigan, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Washington, D.C. even, and participated in Stop the Steal rallies. And the purpose of these was to just encourage people to, don't lose heart, don't lose your spirit, because we want to encourage our state legislators to conduct a forensic audit of the vote so that we know for certain what happened in the 2020 election. And because I had lent my name to that cause, and it was obviously very widely publicized, I was invited to be a speaker on January 6th at a permitted event on Capitol grounds following the president speaking. And that's why I came to DC on January 6th. So I sat there on the 6th, listened to the president speak at the Ellipse. There was a march from the Ellipse to the Capitol, and then I was supposed to be speaking on a stage on Capitol grounds along with dozens of other speakers, including members of Congress, etc. So as I was approaching the Capitol for my speaking engagement, I started getting messages from friends and family and colleagues and people at home who were watching it on television saying, we're hearing on the news that people are going inside the building. And that sounded peculiar to me, because usually conservatives, it's hard to get them to even show up for a protest. We've seen the left numerous times go inside the Capitol and go inside government buildings to protest and shout out and bang on the doors of members of Congress and things like that. But we don't see conservatives do that. So I was of several minds at that point. I thought to myself, either what's being reported on the news is not true, or it's not actually conservatives who are doing it, or something strange is happening. And I thought to myself, I want to go see for myself what's going on, and I want to capture it. I've at the time, my Twitter following at the time was like 666,000 followers. I have a large Facebook following. And so I thought, I can help get the accurate truth out about what's going on that I'm hearing about. So I started approaching the Capitol from the East Side grounds, and I started shooting a video. And I shot one continuous video for about 10 minutes. And this includes me walking up into the East Side Capitol grounds, through to where the people were gathered outside of the Capitol building and up to the top of the East Side Capitol steps. Now, I keep repeating East Side because after January 6th, the media inundated viewers with images of things that happened on the west side of the building. So when people think about January 6th, then they think about police officers struggling with protesters, barricades being knocked down, windows being broken, things like that. To my knowledge, that happened exclusively on the west side of the building. That was not happening on the east side of the building where I was. In my video, you clearly see I'm walking up the east side sidewalk. There are people gathered all over on the grounds. They're very relaxed. They're having conversations, smoking cigarettes, riding bicycles, things like that. And then when I get to the end of the east side sidewalk, there is off to the side of the sidewalk, there is bike rack that's been opened. And off to the other side of the sidewalk, there's bike rack that's been opened. But there were no closed barricades whatsoever. There were also no signs warning people that they weren't allowed to walk past the open barricade. There were no police, zero, not one police officer on the east side grounds telling people, get back, you're not allowed to be here. All there was a fully open, I guess I feel I don't even like using the word barricade, because if it's open, how's it a barricade? But
Yeah.
the fully open bike rack. And on the other side of the bike rack were thousands and thousands of people gathered on the Capitol steps on the east side, not facing toward the Capitol, not with a posture of trying to get inside, facing away from the Capitol, holding signs, singing songs, chanting, etc. So I walked up into this crowd of thousands of people facing away from the Capitol, and at the top of the stairs is a man, and he's calling down to the people below. This is in my video. He's calling down to the people below. They've opened the doors. They're letting us in. We're going inside. We're going inside. So I walked up to the top of the stair. I repeated what he said, word for word, verbatim, repeated it. And later the government left out that he said that. They just said that I said it, like I was giving a command to the audience. The government said, Strzok stood outside the Capitol shouting, we're going in, we're going in. But I walked up to the top of the stairs, and when I got to the top of the stairs, sure enough, the two large metal doors on the east side of the building were wide open. There was a crowd of several hundred people, I would say, at the top of the stairs, and some of them were trying to shove their way in. The majority of them, like me, were standing outside shooting a video. So I stood outside of the Capitol for 8 minutes, on the top of the steps for 8 minutes. I was about 35 feet away from the open doors of the Capitol. After 8 minutes, a man came outside of the building. He got on a bullhorn, and he said, they've cleared Congress. Everyone left the building. Move out, move out. Now, this is a protester, not a police officer.
Okay.
And so when he said that, I immediately turned around and left, and also told the people behind me, they're saying to move out. You need to go this way. And then I left and I went down the stairs. I stayed for about another 30 minutes or so, and I shot, I think, 13 more videos, just interviewing people, street interviews, things like that. And then I took my original video, that 10-minute video that I just described, and I uploaded it to Twitter. And I basically said, this was the scene outside of the Capitol. This is what I saw. This is what I experienced, etc. Probably 2 hours after that, I was back at my hotel room turned on my TV and started to see for the first time what had occurred on the west side of the building. I started seeing the images of people breaking windows and stuff. I was like, wow, wow, like, what is this? And I became concerned, not that I would be in trouble. I got concerned that my own followers would think that that's where I was and that I was in that proximity and that I was, marginalizing or underselling that. And so I just thought, in an effort to avoid confusion, I removed my video. I took my video down. I took my post down about being at the Capitol because I was like, I don't really understand what happened or what is happening, and I need to gather more information. Nonetheless, my video had lived on Twitter for about 2 hours. And so during that time, it had been copied by Twitter trolls who then began reposting my video over and over and over again, day after day after day, tagging the FBI and telling the FBI that I was there, that I was encouraging people to riot, that I was, encouraging the insurrection. And within 24 hours, the media came up with this term insurrection. The Democrats started pushing it. The media started pushing it. And then within a day or two, the FBI started rounding people up and arresting people. I started getting asked constantly, are you afraid? Are you nervous? And I kept saying, no, I'm not afraid. I'm not nervous because I didn't break the law. I didn't, what do I have to be afraid of? So 2.5 weeks later, on Monday, January 25th, I woke up to the FBI storming my apartment at dawn. A team of agents in tactical gear came into my apartment, got me out of bed, put me in handcuffs. Within 30 seconds, I was handcuffed. I was told that I was facing multiple felony charges for what I had done on January 6th. And a team of agents came into my apartment and began stripping it of my computers, my phones, my iPads, my cameras, my hard drives, my thumb drives, my camera equipment, taking my things and putting them into bags and labeling them, while two other agents paraded me through my apartment building with my hands cuffed behind my back, put me in a black car, and took me to jail. I sat in jail for 2.5 days before a judge ordered my release. And the judge ordered my release because the government acknowledged in court that I did not commit any violence, any vandalism, any theft, or any destruction. And they said, and they knew that I didn't go inside the Capitol. They acknowledged that they knew I didn't enter the Capitol, didn't engage in any violence, vandalism, theft, or destruction. So they were not going to fight to have me detained pending trial. The judge ordered my release. I got out at about 2, 3 in the morning on the third morning. And then at about 8 o'clock the next morning, after a traumatized and sleepless night, I was able to meet with my attorney. My team had found me an attorney during the days that I was in jail. And that's when I finally began to understand what I was being accused of doing. I said to my attorney, I was told I'm facing felonies. How could I be facing felonies? I didn't commit any crimes. He said to me, well, in your video, your 8-minute video, he said, well, let's get to that second. The first two things he said to me was, one, they're charging you with a felony for occupying restricted grounds. So in other words, a trespassing felony. So he said, the majority of people who are being charged who went inside the Capitol are getting misdemeanor charges of occupying a restricted building. You didn't even go in the building, but they're giving you a felony for being on the grounds. And no one else who was in my video around me was being arrested or charged. He said they charged you with a misdemeanor of disorderly conduct with an intent to disrupt a hearing before Congress. And he said, but they're also charging you with another felony that they're calling impeding law enforcement. And I said, I really don't understand this. There were no police officers on the East Side grounds. And he said, well, actually, he said, in your video, there's a moment where an officer walks through the crowd, one officer, and he's carrying a plastic shield above his head, like a surfboard. as he's walking through the crowd. One person from the crowd grabs his plastic shield out of his hands and jerks it away from him, and then the crowd passes his shield for 30 seconds, and then they give it back to him. But during that 30 seconds that the shield is being passed around, you hear numerous voices on my video shouting, take it, take the shield, take the shield, take the shield, whatever. Well, the FBI says that's you. They say that that's your voice shouting for the crowd to take the shield from an officer, and they're charging you with a felony for that, of impeding law enforcement. And he said the DOJ also told me that they have not yet charged you with felony obstruction of an official proceeding, that they're applying that charge to a number of J6ers. So far, they haven't given it to you. They might, but so far they haven't. Now, this was in the same conversation that he had already, while I was in jail, he had already begun having conversations with them about a plea deal. Would they be willing to drop the felonies if I pled guilty to a misdemeanor? And the prosecutor indicated that she would be amenable to that. So as far as I'm concerned, the threat of the additional felony, obstruction of an official proceeding, and she made it clear to tell him that's a felony charge that carries a 20-year prison sentence, a potential 20-year prison sentence. So I was potentially looking at 35 years worth of charges for the 8 nonviolent minutes that I stood outside of the Capitol with an iPhone in my hand. And to me, it seemed crystal clear that the path forward for myself was to plead guilty to a misdemeanor, because going to DC and standing before a DC jury as a Trump supporter, and a DC judge as a Trump supporter, did not feel like a successful path for me. And so at that moment, I made the decision that the best option available to me was to plead guilty to a misdemeanor charge. And I apologize because I know I've been talking for a long time. So if you feel like I can keep going, or you can jump in at this, however you want to do it.
No, so my family and we were in Disney World when this whole thing started happening. I was standing in line at one of the Star Wars rides. I was on Gateway Pundit, and I'm reading and I'm seeing these attacks on the west side of the Capitol, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, why would people behave like this? And then over time, as I've studied and researched this, I've realized that they have edited video, they have lied, they've manipulated people. The people were peaceful until like percussion grenades were thrown in. Like, this whole thing, it smells bad on the side. But then when I saw your story and I watched your footage, I was like, wait a minute, this is a completely different story. And you're being treated like you're one of the people that smashed in the windows with a Trump flag and crawled through and went into Nancy Pelosi's office and put your dirty boot. Like, you're being treated at that level just because you were in the area. And that's where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So then I had I don't know what they call him, the QAnon shaman on my show after he got out of jail. And we were able to show all of these lies with the video footage. And then just last week, I saw a new video that when people are going in, he's literally trying to block them from getting into the Capitol. He's yelling, Donald Trump has tweeted, everyone go home, don't be violent, don't be like this, right? And so anyway, that's why I wanted to have you on, is you have this story that I believe has been fabricated to make you the poster boy of evil. And I don't believe that's who you are. I know that's not who you are.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, and what's so crazy is that, so, none of this would be allowed to happen if the left believed that the right was capable of having a counteroffensive, that there would be any consequences or repercussions for them doing this to people. Because look, like, I know that in the grand scheme of humanity, I'm not like a famous person. If you ask the average person on the street who Brandon Straka is, they're probably not going to know. But if you ask most people who really care about politics and follow it closely and whatever, I would say that I am politics famous. And so since this is a very political thing, I mean, my name, my reputation, my body of work was out there for 2.5 years. And the portrayal that the government created of me and my character and the kind of person I am is in blatant contradiction to anything that has been portrayed to the public for 2.5 years leading up to January 6th. I mean, I traveled the country raising money and doing events for the Black community, for the Hispanic community, for the LGBT community, and I was suddenly being portrayed as a white supremacist, a racist, a crazy anarchist who went to the Capitol to encourage other white supremacists and anarchists to attack the government, to overthrow the government, to engage in insurrection. And I'm like, if anybody on the right was actually advocating for or fighting back on behalf of those of us who are being dragged into this is beyond preposterous. I mean, I can literally prove that the only reason I went to DC on January 6th was to speak, and that I was on my way to my speaking engagement. I mean, I literally have text messages leading up right until the moment that I was told that people were going in the building, where I'm like, where's the stage? Where am I supposed to go? Where am I supposed to be? I'm asking these questions. So they know that the fact that I changed course from walking over to wherever the stage was supposed to be to walking up to the steps to investigate what was going on was a split-second decision. Like, that is provable by numerous messages that I have. And yet the story being put forward by the DOJ and being salivated over by the media to push forward was that I went there with an intent to overthrow the peaceful transfer of power. That doesn't even make sense. I mean, that intent would have had to have been created on a split-second notice. It would have had to have been, I'm on my way to speak. Oh, wait, no, I'm actually going to overthrow the government instead. Like, that's how quickly that would have had to have happened. And yet they were able to get away with pushing that forward. And so, long story short, I mean, it's a very, very long story, but I did end up, after being dragged through absolute hell, which included being permanently banned by PayPal, Venmo, Stripe, Patreon, having my social media accounts banned. There are other J6ers who have lost their bank accounts and their mortgages. We've all been placed on a TSA terrorism list. So before we even pled guilty or had our day in court, we were all, from the moment we were arrested, we were all put on a terrorism watch list, which means that we are allowed to board an airplane, but we have to go through hours of screening and have TSA agents follow us all over the airport to be able to board an airplane. We have all been placed on a registry by the government, like a sex offender registry. If you don't believe me, Google my name, Brandon Straka, Straka. The first search result you're going to see is a dossier that's been compiled on me by the government at doj.gov. And it doesn't just say that Brandon Straka pled guilty to a misdemeanor. They list everything that they accused me of that they never substantiated, and charges that they themselves dropped when I took my plea deal. But they listed all there as like a matter of fact that these are things that I did. And then they link to all of your court documents. So people Google your name and they have no idea that you weren't found guilty of those things. It just says Brandon Straka, charged with felony impeding officers, charged with felony occupying restricted grounds, charged with, all these different things. But what I ultimately ended up pleading guilty to a Class B misdemeanor for disorderly conduct. My attorney said a Class B misdemeanor is akin to playing your music too loud on a Friday night. He said it's barely above a citation. Basically made me feel like, don't worry about it. This is not something to be concerned about. What I did not know at that time was that a January 6th misdemeanor, Class B misdemeanor, would still be treated as an act of terrorism. And that because 90+% of the mainstream media feels that it is their job to be an extension of the government and the Department of Justice, and see themselves not as journalists or even activists, but as actual prosecutorial arm of the Democratic Party, that my misdemeanor would be treated as an egregious act of domestic terrorism. And that is how I have been reported on. That's how my case has been handled. That's how I've been treated. It's how I continue to be treated almost 3 years after the 8 minutes that I stood on the Capitol steps nonviolently shooting a video. And in my plea deal that I signed, the government, in all of these plea deals, the government writes your statement of offense, which is essentially a confession that is written by the government that you sign when you take your plea deal. And my statement of offense says that I went into the restricted area of the Capitol knowing that the grounds were restricted and that I was breaking the law when I entered them. That when I got there, I witnessed a mob of, well, they say that I witnessed Capitol police officers doing their best to restrain the crowd, but I joined the mob anyway. And that during that time, I witnessed the crowd passing a police officer's shield, and that I chimed in with the crowd shouting, take it, essentially to encourage the mob to take a shield from an officer. These are all things that were non-negotiables, because it is a plea deal. It is a deal. So my attorney went back and said, please remove these statements from his plea deal. And we were told by the government, no, we will not remove these statements. Essentially, if he doesn't like it, he's welcome to go to trial. And that for me was never an option. So that was my misdemeanor plea. And so to this day, that is the public narrative of my behavior on January 6th. But let me say this, and then I'll shut up. Most people who commit crimes, particularly crimes that are caught on video, don't want people to look at the video of what they did, don't want people to be made aware of the actual tangible evidence that is captured on film of their crimes. I want people to watch my video. I want everyone watching to watch the video that I shot on January 6th and compare my video to the account of my actions and what I did. I want people to look at it. So I'll just say that.
Yeah, I would love to share that. I don't even remember how I saw it, but I watched the whole thing. You're walking up, you're talking, I've seen the whole thing. So I would love to share that with them. I wanted to ask.
Could I say something real quick,
Yeah.
just very quickly? Because I mean, there's nothing very funny about any of this, but it is slightly amusing, because if you're to believe the media, and if you're to believe the powers that be that are trying to present my behavior and my attitude and my demeanor on January 6th, you would literally believe that I was like rabid, foaming at the mouth, charging at the Capitol, like, let's get him, hang Mike Pence, that's the portrayal. In my video, as I'm going up the steps in the crowd of people, you literally hear me numerous times going, excuse me, I'm sorry, can I get through? Excuse me. It's like, this is not exactly the demeanor of somebody who is on their way to, kill people and try to overthrow the government.
Yeah.
Just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, the polite evil person.
Right.
So
excuse me. I'm sorry. Can I get through?
one thing that I wanted to ask. Well, let me say this first. There's now quite a bit of evidence that the FBI had people in the crowd. You have Representative Clay Higgins saying they believe there was upwards of 200 people dressed as Donald Trump MAGA people. That there were buses that brought people in at 6 a.m. That I've covered on my show, that the FBI put out an internal memo saying, there were so many of you at the FBI, we've lost count. Can you please self-identify so that we know who was that? They don't know how many people were there. That's how many people were there, right? Most of that was likely on the opposite side of where you were. But I believe I heard that the DC courts had leaked that you were an FBI informant in order to turn people against you even further. What is the story there?
Right. Thank you for asking about this because I rarely get an opportunity to talk about it. So, a condition of getting a plea deal, a January 6th plea deal, is that you must interview with the government. So it's first of all, it's kind of been portrayed as though like I'm the only person who sat down and talked with the government because I was, just dying to throw people under the bus to save my own skin. I would estimate, I don't know for sure, but certainly more than 90%, maybe more than 95% of January 6th defendants have taken plea deals. And it is a mandatory condition that you must interview with the government to get a plea deal. So everybody has done it. Everybody has done what I did. So I sat down with the government and they asked me a number. And by the way, I sat down with them more than once. The first time that I sat down with them, they mostly focused on me. Where were you? Where did you stay? What hotel did you stay at? Where were you at this time? Why did you go here instead of there? I mean, and honestly, really stupid questions. Where did you go for lunch? Did you take the subway or did you walk? It was just stupid stuff like that. And then in the second time that they asked to speak with me, which was about a month later, and by the way, you don't know, like they don't reach out to you and say, we want to talk to you again and we want to talk to you about this. They just say, we want to talk to you again. So for all I knew, they wanted to ask follow-up questions about the answers I had given them in my first interview with them. But as it turns out, they wanted to ask me about, I don't know, 18 different people. And I want to make really clear, none of the questions were probative in a way that like even came close to trying to entrap other people in a crime. They started asking me about a lot of activists that I know. For instance, they were asking me about names like C.J. Pearson, Scott Pressler, Ali Alexander, Cindy Chafian, Amy and Kylie Kramer, Jenny Beth Martin. I think it was 18 people. And the questions were things like, do you know this person? And by the way, about half of the names that they asked me, I had never heard of. So let's say that it was 18 names, probably at least 9 of them. My answer was, I don't know. I've never heard that name before. But there were about half of them that I did. And so they would ask me, do you know this person? Yes, I know this person. How do you know this person? Well, they're a pretty well-known political activist. Do you know them personally? Yeah, we've met once or twice. Would you consider this person to be a friend or would you consider this person to be an acquaintance? Mostly an acquaintance because I've only run into them a few times at some rallies. I mean, it was literally stuff like this. None of them were questions like, did you witness that person inside the Capitol? Or did you witness that person tell anyone to go to? It was nothing like that. And when we got done, I turned to my attorney and I said, "What was the point of any of those questions? Like that was so." And he was like, "I don't know." He was like, "Just consider yourself lucky. It was really easy." And I was like, "Yeah, it was really easy." Well, I realize now, I believe that I was being set up. And I'll explain to you in a moment the third and last sit down that I had with them because that's very relevant to the question you just asked.
Okay.
But before we get to that, after I got through my case and I got through my sentencing, and they put me on house arrest, and I went through 3 months of house arrest, and then I reemerged and I started doing events again. I started doing media again. I started speaking out about all of this. I resumed my activity of doing my events with Walkaway and my mission to get people to walk away from the Democratic Party. And I think it became very clear that I'm not going to say that I was unscathed. I'm very scathed by this, but that I was not going to quit or that I was not going to allow this to, make me curl up in a ball and die. I was going to keep charging forward. And so I don't know if it was a decision that the media created or if they were working with people in the government because they're absolutely working together. Make no mistake. The media and the DOJ and people within the FBI are absolutely communicating with each other, exchanging information, helping each other achieve their ends. But a media coalition came together and went to my judge and told my judge that they wanted access to all of my sealed communications with the DOJ and the FBI. So any answers that I gave the DOJ and the FBI during those sessions, they wanted it. The media wanted it. My judge said that she felt that enough time had passed, that there was no reason not to unseal these documents, but that she would allow us the opportunity to suggest redactions if we wanted anything redacted. Now, I was thinking to myself, this is insane. This is insane, because I literally, agreed to sit down and answer questions. I didn't have to, but I agreed to do it. But I certainly didn't think that 6 months later, everything that I said would be handed over to the New York Times and CNN. Nonetheless, it didn't even matter. We didn't get an opportunity to suggest redactions because within 24 hours, the DC courts accidentally unsealed all of my documents, and for 28 minutes. And during these 28 minutes, the documents ended up in the hands of every media outlet. So what they did was they reported that I sat down and provided information about all of these different activists and these people, and that the information that I provided resulted in me getting a plea deal. That's how they reported on it. They never said what the information was. They never bothered to explain why, if the information, and they use this word significant information, that was made up by the media. They never bothered to explain why this significant information that I provided never resulted in any of the people on that list ever being visited by the DOJ or the FBI. None of those people were ever charged with a crime. None of those people were ever even accused of a crime. And yet the media, without even talking to me, by the way, went ahead and just came out with a plethora of articles. BuzzFeed actually did one where the headline was, "You will go to your grave a traitor. How one January 6th insurrectionist turned FBI informant to save his own skin," or something like that. This was literally based off of a conversation where I was asked, who is this person? How do you know them? And half the people on the list, I didn't even know their names. That was the information that I provided. But most egregiously of all was that, and this comes back to the question you just asked about FBI plants. I was reached out to by two people who saw my January 6th video online, and they identified a person in my video standing very close to me on the Capitol steps. This is a person who is a convicted child rapist. He was convicted of raping a 10-year-old girl. And one of the other people who reached out to me was a woman who knows him personally, who told me that he drugged and raped her. This is not a good person.
Yeah.
I was also told by the other person who reached out to me, and this person was present on January 6th, I was told that that person witnessed this person dressed entirely in black from head to toe, went off to the side, changed his clothes, came back dressed as a Trump supporter, and was standing near me on the steps. In my video, you clearly see this person pushing into people, like literally pushing them towards getting pushed into the Capitol, shouting, behaving much more disorderly than I was. And unlike me, who's not, you can't see me on my video, you see him in my video. You actually see the evidence of him pushing people and shouting and being disorderly and encouraging. So I went to my attorney and I said, I don't know what to do with this information because I've been given the identity of this person. He's in my video doing these things, and he has this hideous criminal record, and I don't know what to do. And my attorney said, well, I'm going to tell the DOJ. My attorney said, I'm going to turn this over to DOJ and tell them about it. And so he did. And the DOJ also leaked that to the media, literally gave them his name and gave the media the fact that I was the person who reported him to them. I told the DOJ at the time that so this was in my third and final meeting with them is when I provided that name. I told them, I don't know this person. I was given his information by two other people, but I said, as it turns out, completely by coincidence, this person lives about 1 hour away from me and my family. And I said, I need to know that I will be protected, and that I can feel safe giving this information. And all of it was given to the media. And I mean, I know that this sounds very extreme. I actually believe that the media is trying to get me killed. I think that they would like to see me get killed because they pushed this so hard. And by the way, the media didn't bother to care that this person had raped a little girl or that he had this record or anything. It was Strzok turned him in. Strzok turned this person in. Strzok turned this person in. But long story short, despite the fact that this person was occupying the same restricted grounds as me, standing right near me, despite the fact that this person was behaving much more disorderly than I was, and I was charged with disorderly conduct, even after being given his identity, the FBI and the DOJ have never visited this person. They've never interviewed him. He's never been charged with a crime. I was charged with a felony of standing on those grounds. And so it begs the question, as far as I'm concerned, why would the DOJ, who's going after 70-year-old women with cancer and putting them in prison for trespassing, why would they deprive themselves of the opportunity of having that headline, child raping Trump supporter arrested for his role in the insurrection? They're going to deny themselves of that headline and that conviction and that arrest for somebody who has a criminal record and went to January 6th, but for whatever reason, they're completely uninterested in this person. And we're more than happy to turn over to the media that was the one and only person whose name I provided.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Well, here's a great litmus test. And I'm not saying this happened, but let's say that they brought your name and this person's name to Nancy Pelosi and said, which one of these do you want to go after? Of course, she's going to go after the person getting rid of Democrats, moving them out at a faster rate than anyone else on planet Earth, a political behemoth. Like they're going to go after you. And again, I'm not saying that she did that, but I'm just saying you put those two people forward. Who would she go after? Of course, they're going to go after you. It's crazy.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, this is the entire experience has been like living in the Twilight Zone because let's just say that every single word that the government is saying about me is true. Let's just say, well, the worst accusation against me was that I witnessed someone else grab an officer's shield and pass it around, and that I got excited by that and chimed in saying, take it, take it. That was the worst thing I was accused of doing on January 6th. But the government has created 30-page sentencing recommendations for me, 30 pages, saying why I was so dangerous, that I need to be taught a lesson. I need to be taught a deterrence. I need to be handled. And see, this is the other thing too. It falls in blatant contradiction with their narrative. I mean, because the media is simultaneously reporting that I turned all these people over to the FBI and threw all these people under the bus so I could save my own skin. And in their same breath, they're also reporting about how the DOJ is reporting that I'm so dangerous and that I can't be let off easy and that I need to be taught a lesson because I'm such a dangerous, crazy, violent human being. So these two narratives are somehow trying to coexist with each other that the DOJ is pushing out. But in addition to this, I don't know if you know, I also got sued by 8 Capitol police officers who were not even on the same side of the building I was working on, or that they were not working on the same side of the building that I was present on. And they're being represented by a Soros-funded nonprofit law firm out of Washington, D.C. called Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. This Soros-funded nonprofit went out and found 8 Capitol police officers who are black and brown and sued me and a few dozen other people under the KKK Act, alleging that these black and brown officers were injured and harmed, and that it's my fault that they were injured and harmed because I was a part of a white supremacist attack with an intent to harm black and brown officers on January 6th. It took 2.5 years to get through that civil case, cost me $150,000 to litigate. I ended up winning on all, they came at me on 6 counts. I ended up, all 6 counts have been dismissed against me. The case is over. I won. But, did I win? Because the purpose of it, of course, was to try to bankrupt me, further destroy my name, further destroy my reputation, prevent me from being able to raise money and work and live my life. And those things were accomplished for 2.5 years. Granted, I didn't end up having to go to trial and pay out a judgment to these 8 officers who are lying. So I'm grateful for that. We did have to go through discovery. And through the process of discovery, we learned that one of the officers suing me for assault and battery under the KKK Act was in Maryland at the time that I was at the Capitol.
Not even at the Capitol?
No, he was in Maryland. And another one of them was in another building on Capitol grounds watching the events of January 6th on television. He was in a secured location in another building watching on television. He wasn't even in the building. And the other ones were on the west side of the building, not the east side of the building. Like I said, I won the lawsuit, but this is what I've been going through for 3 years because I walked up on the east side Capitol steps for 8 minutes.
This is why I wanted you to come on and tell your story. I think Americans are so tired of these stories. They're so irritated. They've lost so much faith in the government, in the FBI, and the Department of Justice. It's gross.
Well, and if we look for a moment too at what I just told you with that civil case, what I find really disturbing about it is they really shot the moon with that case, because not only did they blatantly lie about being injured and about me being in any way responsible for their injuries, or because keep in mind, even in my criminal case, and that took a year to get through my criminal case. So that was a year that I was being investigated by the Department of Justice, the FBI, criminally. I was never accused of committing any violence. Never. At no point did anyone ever say I committed violence. And yet I'm being sued by 8 black and brown police officers saying that they were injured and that I caused their injuries directly, that I was the person who caused their injuries, even though in my criminal case, they said he never committed any violence. And so, number one, there's the egregious lie of that, and that you have police officers, people who took an oath to protect and serve the public, are now suing the public and lying about it. But in addition to that, they're lying about race, and they know they're lying about race. They knew for a fact that they have never seen me in their entire lives. They have never met me. They did not encounter me on January 6th. But because of the color of their skin, they were more than happy to say, oh yeah, this white guy caused my injuries, and I'm going to sue him under the KKK Act as a person of color because racism. He's a Trump supporter. He's white. He's a racist. Hopefully we'll get this in front of a DC judge and a DC jury, and all we have to do is show up and say, this white Trump supporter called me the N-word and attacked me, and the jury's going to go for it. And they knew that, and they were willing to roll the dice. Thank God I had a judge who said, this doesn't really add up. No. And it did get tossed. But, you're sitting here saying Americans are tired of this. I mean, it's not just the lies. It's not just January 6th. It's not just the Trump hatred. I mean, they were even willing to take it to the limit to exploit the lies about racism, their lies about racism, to try to extort money out of me just because I happened to be on the Capitol steps for 8 minutes that day. They're like, let's get everything we can. Let's see if we can throw him in jail. Let's see if we can destroy his organization. Let's make him a terrorist. Oh, let's also call him a racist and sue him and see if we can get some money out of him. I mean, this was like a frenzied attempt to get everything that they possibly could out of January 6th. Money, destruction of an effective activist, destroying a person's life. And I maintain, I believe they are trying to get me killed. I think that as well.
Gosh. Let's switch gears. Tell us about the walkaway movement. Why did you start that? What do you do?
Yeah. So I started Walkaway in 2018 after I had an experience that turned my life upside down, which, I voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. I was shattered and just outraged and confused and terrified when Donald Trump got arrested. And it's kind of a long story, but in a nutshell, I went on a journey of research to understand how the media that I had trusted my whole life, CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, etc., had gotten it so wrong because they said Hillary Clinton was going to win in a landslide. They also said that Donald Trump was the second coming of Hitler. So I was like, why would anybody vote for him? I don't understand this. And I went on a months and months long journey of research, which ultimately opened my eyes to the fact that Donald Trump was not my enemy. The media that I had been trusting my entire life was my enemy. And as I just pointed out with that Capitol officer story, they will go to any lengths to exploit the lie that this is a racist country, and that Donald Trump and his supporters are white supremacists and racists, that if you're black or brown or LGBT or a woman, you don't have a chance in this country because you exist in a system of systemic racism and bigotry that's going to hold you down and prevent you from being able to succeed or compete or have a chance in this life. I started to see it all very, very clearly. And ultimately, it led to me walking away from the Democratic Party, the ideology of liberalism, and the left-wing media. And I was so outraged about it. I'm a gay man myself. And when I thought back to the fear and the anger that I felt when Donald Trump got elected, and the fact that I never needed to feel that way because I was being exploited and lied to and manipulated by the people who claim to be my friends, the people on the left-wing media, that's when I decided to do something about it. And so in 2018, I put out a 6-minute video talking about all the reasons why I was walking away from the Democratic Party and the left. I created a Facebook group called #WalkAwayCampaign, and I encourage other people who are feeling pushed away from the left like I was to join my movement, share their own videos and their own written testimonials about why they're walking away from the Democratic Party. I also encourage lifelong Republicans and conservatives to join as supporters. They are what we call the #WalkWiths, meaning you walk with people as they walk away, because as people walk away from the Democratic Party, it's like leaving a cult. They're going to lose their friends, their family, their job opportunities, and much, much more. And within 2.5 years, we had grown to over 511,000 people. We have more than 50,000 video and written testimonials from people sharing their stories about walking away from the Democratic Party. Unfortunately, shortly after January 6th, 2 or 3 days after January 6th, with the same day that they banned Donald Trump and hundreds of thousands of conservatives, Facebook banned the Walkaway campaign for literally no reason. We were never given an explanation. My team and I woke up. We tried to get on Facebook, and our personal accounts were permanently banned, and the Walkaway campaign group was banned, which had, like I said, grown to over 511,000 people. So that's how we started. And then I launched my own foundation in 2019, the Walkaway Foundation. And that's our educational nonprofit, the organization which we travel the country talking to racial minorities, college kids, producing videos that debunk mainstream media lies, myths, and narratives. And basically, our mission is to try to get people woken up, thinking for themselves, doing their own homework, doing their own research. Stop seeing yourself as a part of a monolith. Your identity is not the color of your skin, your gender, your sexual orientation. Your identity is an American individual with freedom and opportunity. And that's there, and it's alive and there for the taking for anybody. If you're willing to walk away from the victim narrative and the groupthink and tribal mentality of the left and join us in the walkaway movement. And if I may say, we are right now in real time about to launch the new Walkaway campaign Facebook group to replace the one that was taken away from us shortly after January 6th. So I would love it, and it would mean the world to me if every person watching this, please, every single one of you, go to Facebook and look up hashtag Walkaway campaign group. And you'll find a brand new group on Facebook it says group by Brandon Straka. Right now, it doesn't have very many members because we haven't even officially launched it yet. I guess this is the official launch. But please, whether you are a hashtag walk away or whether you're a hashtag walk with, please join our group. Help us share it. Help us grow it. I want to get back to where we were, over 500,000, keep growing. And whether you're a walk away or a walk with, submit your testimonials about why you're either walking away from the left or why you support those who do and you want to be a part of our community. So go on Facebook, join the new hashtag Walkaway campaign group by Brandon Straka. And the other thing I'll say is that we have our own app called Walkaway Social. And I would love it if everyone would load our app and join our own social community on Walkaway Social, our autonomous app. It's really great, and I think people will love it.
Great. I'll make sure to put a link to that below. My wife turned me on to your work, I think in around 2019, and so I've followed it, and I appreciate you coming on. I read last night that only 27% of the country identifies themselves as Democrat now. That's the lowest it's been in almost 100 years, and so they are vocal. And you would think that they're everywhere, but they're actually a very small group. Most people are now independent and they're wanting education. They're wanting to know that there's other people out there that want freedom, that want their liberties, that want the pursuit of happiness in the way that they want to pursue it. And so thank you, Brandon, for everything that you do. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story. I believe my community is going to not only be encouraged by somebody like you, but they want to hear these stories. So I appreciate you having the courage to come on and tell that. Anything else you want to say before we sign off?
Well, before we wrap up, I would just say I just wanted to add a little punctuation to what you just said. That you were talking about people walking away and they want something different. They want freedom. I believe that people also want self-respect and dignity. And I think that people have gotten to a point now, whether they are Black or Hispanic or what have you, they're tired of existing in this left-wing system that basically says, because I'm a non-Caucasian, I'm stupid, I'm incompetent, I'm incapable. And that's really what the Democrat Party messaging is. It's that if you're Black, you don't know how to get your own ID. You don't know how to get a job. You don't know how to use a computer. You don't know how. And they're basically saying, these communities can't overcome this type of oppression. I think a lot of Black, Hispanic, and all people, white, straight, gay, what have you, I think people are going, wow, I'm really tired of being treated like I'm stupid. And I'm really tired of being treated like this narrative that I'm a member of a community who is incapable and really infantilized by the left and by the Democrats. I think people are saying, I have too much dignity and self-respect to continue to be a part of a group that portrays people like me this way. I don't want it. I'm walking away from it. I mean, that's my belief. And my final thought is just to say once again, guys, if listening to my story today shocks you, if it outrages you, if it makes you feel scared, if it makes you feel upset, the best way that you can support me and I think take action against the people who are perpetrating these kind of offenses on the American people, help me rebuild. And the only thing that I ask from you is join our group. Join our group, share our content, share our videos, get involved with what we're doing. It doesn't cost you a dime. It doesn't cost you a penny. I just want you to get involved, see what we're doing, encourage people you know to share their videos, share their testimonials, and tell everyone you know about what we're doing and get involved with what we're doing. That would mean the world to me. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you for coming on, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thanks, Stephen.